views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the show hosts, guests, and callers, and do not necessarily reflect the views of staff or management of Wave 105.1 FM, Glimpses Media, or our partners. We strive to provide quality, respectful, and engaging content, and we welcome you to participate in the conversation. Thank you for tuning in to Wave 105.1 FM. Enjoy the show.
Good morning, Thank you, Mr. Wave 104.1, Dr. Juan. Right now, we have challenging status quo with Mr. Melvin WonPat Borja, the Director of the Commission on Decolonization. This show goes every Monday between 10 to 12, where we discuss and provide information on the ongoing movement to defend Guam's political status. Our studio line is 671-962-1051-1052. We'd like for you to join in the conversation. Please give us a call here in our studio. We are streaming online at thewave105.com, on YouTube at thewave105.1 FM Guam, and on the Glimpses Radio app. This is KGMFM, Wave 105.1, and this is Challenge to Status Quo.
And welcome back to Challenge the Status Quo. My name is Melvin WonPat Borja. I'm the Director of the Commission on Decolonization. And we're back. Oh my God.
I know it's been a while.
It has been a while. I was just reflecting before the show started with you. I came in and you was like, wow, I haven't seen you in a long time. So I was glad I missed the show right before the storm.
Right.
You know, all of the agencies have to buckle up and like prepare the facilities for the storm. So I had to make sure that the Guam Museum, the Komodo Village, the Cultural Repository were all good to go.
So many.
Before I end my office over at the Commission on Decolonization, which is in Adeluc, so four places. Thank goodness I got to just take the moment to thank my team. Both teams, my team at the Department of Komodo Affairs and my team at the Commission on Decolonization, two separate staff collections, and these guys were really hustling. And I have to give a shout out to our youth summer interns, who is part of the DYA program. So at the Department of Komodo Affairs, instead of just receiving our list of summer interns, they go through a separate vetting process and apply for the Ulitao program, Ulitao Youth Leadership Program. So we're piloting this program called the Ulitao Youth Leadership Program. And what it is it's a program that is built for young men who are able to be accepted into the DYA program. And as you know, the Guna Ulitao in our culture is often referred to as like a men's meeting house. The men's house, right? That's Ulitao is like a male warrior. And it's a really interesting concept because and very interesting conversation because in our culture it was understood as being this place where young boys went to become men. But when the Spanish reported it, they referred to the Guma Ulitao as a brothel. But that's not what it was. And, obviously there's some things lost in translation. But, and I think the important thing here is that the Komodos are a matrilineal society. So in a matrilineal society, there is no place for the objectification, commodification of a woman and a woman's body, right? So obviously it just doesn't jive with our culture, right? You can't have a brothel. You wouldn't have a brothel in a matrilineal society.
Yeah.
But that said, like, of course, that's, it's part of the young boy's education. It's a part of it. It's not the only thing, obviously. The more important things, I think, are, boys going to learn how to build a home, how to farm the land, how to fish the ocean, how to provide, right? And what role men play in a matrilineal society, because even men obviously have to have a role. And so it's a cool concept that we started scheming out with our coordinator, our project coordinator, Vince Rages, who spent a long time in cultural arts, performing arts. And so we came up with this idea, and it was actually a cool accident. Cool accident because we were, Vince was hosting the Fem Guaizahao conference at the Guam Museum, and a bunch of the schools just like pulled out at the last minute for whatever reason. But the one school that still showed up was Father Duenas. And a lot of this was because we were deliberately targeting schools that don't have any kind of cultural programming.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of schools, right, especially public schools now, and thanks to the work of a lot of champions for the cultural arts and cultural education. That there's a lot of schools now that have some kind of cultural program. Every public school has some other language, right? Because that's in our law. We built props to our political leaders who really, put in the work to mandate Samoan education, Samoan language instruction in the schools. And so there's already language instruction, but some schools have started to adopt, cultural education. A lot of it is performing arts, but not all of it. So we targeted the schools that didn't have anything, and it just turned out that FD was the only one that actually showed up. And so we ended up having this conference, and it was just like a bunch of young men. And of course, in any teenage group, you're having a discussion, and some kid says something problematic. And, as the instructor, the educator, the facilitator, you're supposed to speak on it, right? And correct it. Correct the misinformation, misunderstanding, and, offensive language that may have hurt somebody. And so when these things which inevitably happen, right, these things started to kind of come up, the way that it was being handled in this setting was very, blunt and direct, because it was just, a bunch of boys and a bunch of men. And so, you could just tell them plainly what is wrong with that statement, or what is wrong with that, sentiment, right, and why it's problematic, and more importantly, why is it problematic in a matrilineal culture? And so it was this really cool kind of moment where a bunch of adults is keeping it real with a bunch of young men, and it was very effective, very impactful. And so we just started having this conversation about, what could this look like if we were really deliberate about it, and we said, we wanted to engage young men in leadership training, cultural training.
Yes.
And so, that's how the idea was born. And then one thing led to another. We ended up connecting with DYA, who was running this youth leadership or summer youth internship program. And we figured out a way to incorporate, to partner with DYA and to integrate our program into theirs, their program into ours. And one thing led to another. We ended up getting the DCA Board of Trustees approval to help pay for cultural practitioners, so that way we could pay an honoraria to a master carver, for example, or a master talador who wants to come down and do a workshop with our kids, right? And so it's awesome. It turned into this really awesome program and opportunity for these young people. Yeah. Because the youth summer internship program is also a job, right? And so majority of the day, the boys are there. They're spending time with a cultural practitioner. But there are also hours of the day where they have to do work with the department. So they did work at the Guam Museum, at the Guam Cultural Repository, at the Samoa Village, and they were also a part of our typhoon recovery effort, which was amazing. It was amazing to have 20-some young men who are just tell us what to do, where to go, and we're on it. And I loved it. It was such a great thing. And I think the nice thing about having them, especially for the typhoon recovery, was that they're there firsthand, engaging in the work. Not just assuming that all of the damage and debris after a typhoon just magically disappears. That there are hands that go out and do that work. And so it was cool. It's cool to have these young men doing all these cool things. And, engaging. I think the biggest thing I appreciated was the intergenerational engagement with the young men and our elders.
Okay.
I want to give a real quick shout out to Senator Joe Kanaka, who was the
The preservation?
formerly of the Guam Preservation Trust, who
Yes.
recently retired. Congratulations, Senator, on your retirement. And it just kind of happened by accident. We were down in the lobby, and I ran into Vince, and I was just kind of teasing him and complaining that, how come what kind of music workshops are we having this year? Usually we have like we try to hit a lot, right? Like chant, dance, music, handicrafts like carving, weaving, talaza, heart building, and then we also have to have some kind of like physical art, right? Like, because the men were at that time learning like the Tomoto martial art, but Tomoto martial art was like wiped off the face of the earth by the Spanish during the Chamorro Spanish War. That was part of what, that's how you conquer a nation, right? And so we had to have some kind of like physical element. So last year we did jiu-jitsu, since jiu-jitsu is, it's relevant, it's functional, self-defense, but it's also pretty hot with the young men, right, and young girls. And so great kind of opportunity. This year we did wrestling, which is also, great physical pursuit. If you ever train wrestling, you definitely get in some really great shape. So, and it's great. It's good to have the kind of physical, mental, spiritual element, right? And so Santa Joe was down there in the lobby and just so happened to be there when I was complaining to Vince. Vince, where's the Bill and Bow then? How come we're not teaching the Bill and Bow? He's like, man, I just couldn't find anybody who, a master or a practitioner who can teach workshop. And Joe Kanata was right there in the lobby, and he goes, I can teach Bill and Bow then. I said, what? And he said, yeah, me and my wife, we're practitioners. We know how to make them. We know how to play them. And I would be happy to do it. And perfect timing because he just retired. And so it was this awesome thing where, they came down, him and his wife came down, somebody else, I think, from their family too. There was 3 of them at one point. But it was an awesome thing. They taught the boys how to make their own Bill and Bow. So it was like 20 some odd Bill and Bow in the multi-purpose room. They're all like, it was awesome. It was so awesome. And the boys are so proud, to have made this instrument and learn how to play the instrument, learn the history of the instrument. Really cool thing. And obviously it's kind of a novelty niche thing in the sense that, in a lot of ways, this is a dying art. There's not a lot of people left on Guam who know how to play the Bill and Bow or even know what it is. And so it was one of my personal favorites, just to see the young men out there building their instrument and then, being taught how to play the instrument. And then they also do, of course, like contemporary music. They had a workshop with Joey Franquez, which is really great. So shout out to our young men out there who did the hard yards and, had a great opportunity. You guys got paid, I think it's like minimum wage. But when you're a teenager, minimum wage, and like these guys earn like 30 hours a week. Even if you got a gig, like you got lucky and got your summer job as a 15-year-old, 16-year-old, your employer is not giving you more than 20 hours a week. There's no way. The employers just don't trust teenagers to work that many hours. It's just kind of the reality of it. And so for all of these kids, not just the ones who are in the Uli Type program, but Guam wide, all these departments and agencies were able to bring in a handful of youth summer interns, and they're all over the place, everywhere. The airport, the legislature, DPW, DPR, you name it, public health, or all these. There are a bunch of kids who got a great opportunity. And, shout out to DYA and the Leonberg Tenorio administration who really, this was their brainchild. They really put the effort in to pull this thing off, and it's been running for, 3 years, 4 years, something like that? Yeah. Really cool program. I'm not going to lie, I was jelly. When I was super jelly. Yeah, when I was a teenager, we had something similar, but it was called AHRD. I don't even know what that stood for, but I just remember that, AHRD. But it was like one of these where you had to be within a certain you couldn't your family household income couldn't couldn't exceed a certain amount. And I remember my mom was a senator at the time when I was a teenager, and I always used to ask her, Mom, can you get me in this program? I want to get a job. It sounds cool. And my mom would always tell me, no, boy, that's not for you. No, that's called nepotism. I'm not going to do that for you just because you're my son. That's not for you. It's for these other kids that, need that opportunity. And it was very, very limited. But I remember it being a super cool thing. Like, my friends that got a summer job, made some money and, got this cool experience. And I imagine they were a lot more hireable when we graduated from high school than I was because I had very little work experience. Anyhow, we got 2 calls on the air already, and I got to get to it because I've been making line 1 wait. All right, we got Kaduku on line 1. Afternoon, you're on the air.
Boy,
Afternoon.
can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
You remind me of Sylvester Stallone when he said, I'll be back. Or was that Arnold Schwarzenegger?
I think that was Arnold. Arnold, yeah, the Terminator. I'll be back.
I'll be back. Sylvester Stallone went to the Philippines. He said, first blood, second blood, third blood, and the Filipinos said, no more blood.
Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger, the two
Yeah,
biggest,
man, those are great heroes. Can you imagine we have them right now on our team? Ain't nobody going to mess with Bob.
Yeah, I think I preferred Arnold as the Terminator versus the Governator. I didn't really think Arnold was a great governor.
Yeah, I like him in Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah, Conan. He was way better in Conan than as the governor of California. I agree, 100%.
Anyway, just because you got the Leland Vegas with the missing missile system may be missing missile.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Leland Vegas from the Pacific Center for Island Security. Yeah, they've been putting a lot of great information out on basically the entire defense conversation, but a lot of focus absolutely on the missile defense system, which I think is something that a lot of people, more people need to pay attention to. It's not just, I think most people know what it is, and most people are concerned about it, but they're only really thinking about it in a kind of one-dimensionally, right? Like, I think the far and wide, or the common perception of the missile defense system is that, oh yeah, we want to have something to protect Guam. But a lot of people are not asking about what is this thing? Here's this proposal. Yes, it's proposed to defend Guam against a missile attack. But what is it, and how does it work, and is it really going to do what we think it's going to do? And I think that those are fair questions for a host community. A host community should always ask, what is the effectiveness of this system, and what are the impacts to our community, if the system needs to be used, or even when it's not in use. And I think, the big issue right now with the missile defense system is the proposal for these nuclear reactors. I mean, they're calling them micronuclear reactors, but there's nothing micro about nuclear, right?
Yeah, it's a what do you call it? Weapon of mass destruction. Range 2,000 miles. It can reach in 15 minutes, and we're going to house that here. We become even a more bigger target because Kim Jong-un's got a bomb killer.
Right.
So everyone's going to be pointing their missiles at us, and we got the Dark Eagle who can be in your backyard anytime, any place, anywhere in 15. That's not enough time to duct tape the windows, man.
I think
all I'm saying is here we are out here on this side of the sticks. We protect America against her enemies out on this side. Kim Jong-un, the Russians, China, Vladimir Putin, and you name it. And what's in it for us? We throw everything in. We become a target. We become a big X in the missile system. Like they said, they're going to protect us. Well, maybe they can and maybe they can't, because one's going to get in, if not two. And here we are. We're not prepared. We got no underground shelter. We got no place to run when that siren goes off at the base. This is not a drill. This is the real deal. Where are we supposed to run to? I probably run out to my street and kiss the earth goodbye, but we got no place to go, man, and we're out here. What we need to do is we need to relocate our manamkur and our children and our women back to Kentucky so that maybe when they start shooting us, maybe we can come back 50 million decades later and maybe we can live here again and start our bloodline again. But the way it is right now, man, we've thrown in everything. And what's in it for us? Zero? Maybe 60-40, and we'll give them the 60 and we'll take the 40? I don't think so. Here we are, man. We wear that uniform with honor and pride. We stand and fought for America for every war she had, and we're still playing this game, man. It's like, hey, man, can you guys just give us a little leeway and give us at least a chance to live and die in peace in our own homeland and fix us because we're fixing everybody else. We can't even fix our island because everybody comes here and they're welcome. But can you help us? We cannot even fix our pothole. And here we are, man. We're the most loyal, law-abiding kind of machine the world's ever seen. We wear that uniform with honor and pride, and we'll do it again. And what's in it for us? Zero. We're not invited to the table. So, pamakilo, lena panogil, lena pamakili patomu, unincorporated trust territory of the United States. That means you are a possession. I own you. You need to do as I say and say as I do. And it's like, come on, man. I thought we're friends. I thought we fought for you. We don't need to prove nothing to nobody no more. I don't know why they keep playing this game for us no win, but keep on doing what you're doing, man, because it's not nice what they do to us. And like I said, all they got to do with the stroke of a pen, set us free. Vote for me, and I'll set you free. Anyway, Therese Talari and Sabina Paris are governor and lieutenant governor, and poor Auntie Mary, her sign is still up there in Jigu, facing the mud, and already the frog that laid the eggs, they're already hatching in it. It's still laying there, and no one made any attempt to go pick it up. So what kind of leaders are we voting for? They can't even pick up the sign. It's been enough adequate time for them to do that. I might as well go get my hammer and go take it apart and take some of that wood and build me an outside kitchen or maybe an underground shelter. But hey, anyway, man, I'll be back, and nice hearing you again, Melvin. Don't you stop coming into the show, because we need people like you, man, to keep us informed.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
All right. So, Kaduku, one of our regular callers, thanks for the call. We're going to move right on to our next caller on line 2. Hapade, line 2 is Verna. You're on the air.
Ungan. Hapade, I'm the cousin, the older cousin of John Ray, the Taitano boy that called to me before. Way back in the day, Ungan. Anyway, you mentioned what is it, AHRD, and I don't even, you're right, I got to look it up. What does it stand for?
I don't know, but you know what I'm talking about, right? You remember that?
Ungan, because it was back then, during my time in the 1900s, what is it? We had DYA and AHRD,
right.
kind of like both in competition in a sense. For teenagers like myself who took advantage of it, to get a summer job,
right.
Earn some money to help out with back to school supplies and whatnot, right? Yeah. And so I did it for 2 summers in a row, which was awesome. And I actually worked at the exchange upstairs at what they call the procurement department, which means they're the ones that buy the stuff to sell. So old school and whatnot. I learned a whole bunch of stuff working with mostly ladies, and we learned a really good work ethic with somebody named Mrs. Inez Kinata from Santa Rita. And she was, what's the word? She was fair but firm.
Yeah.
And a lot of people didn't really like her because of the way she was. But man, this lady got things done. God bless her. She already passed away some time ago. She's from my village, and she put the fear in everybody is what I'm saying. And I went back the second time when I had a choice not to work there, but I just loved working under her because, like I said, this woman got things done. There was no favoritism, no buddy-buddy system, no nothing. Right. It was, so I learned a lot from her. So, I feel like I am where I am based on all these awesome women in my life, because I wasn't blessed to have grew up with my mom because she passed away when I was really young. But people like Mrs. Inez Canasta helped me out, and all these strong women in my life, like Auntie Sarah Taitino, Charlotte Taitino, Auntie Joanne, also known as Joni, Charlotte St. Augustine, and all these, women that I've been blessed with and everything, including some teachers, of course, and whatnot. So just thinking of that made me realize, thankful that I was able to do what I did and be a part of a community that literally supported me and helped me be who I am today.
I think that's awesome. Thank you for calling and sharing
Viva
your
Kamalawan.
Viva! I love it. Thank you for the call, Verna.
Okay, bye.
Okay, adios. I agree. I think that's I gotta say, I think that I've noticed that there has been some criticism of the youth summer internship program, which, I think in some ways is unfair in the sense, like some of the criticisms like, oh, you're just giving paying these kids a paycheck, they're not even doing anything, and that part I really don't agree with. I think that there are a lot of great people in the workforce, like Mrs. Kanata, who Verna was talking about, that have, helped to shape young minds and kind of prepare young people for the workforce. I gotta say, like, in the beginning, every year that there's a youth summer internship program, the first week is like this reality check for a lot of these kids. You know what I mean? Like full-on reality check. Yeah.
Definitely, you gotta have your man. The way you have to deal with
there's
people.
a protocol. There's a code of conduct, right?
Yeah.
And it's just funny how, like, sometimes you just have to be direct that, we're very serious about the dress code.
Yes.
Like, you can't just show up with your shorts and your Crocs.
Spaghetti straps and, those kind of things.
Yeah, we kind of do that, girl. Boy, however you identify.
The board shorts.
Yeah, however you identify, there's a code. Yeah. It doesn't matter how you identify as long as you dress professionally. And so, but it's also an awesome thing to see young people be rewarded. Like when they get their first paycheck. And I gotta just share this is super off on a tangent, but every year when these guys get their paycheck, these kids look at the paycheck like, what is this? What do I do with this?
Oh, I thought you were gonna say the tax.
Yeah, that too. Like, where's all this money? How come it says I earned this amount, but I'm only getting this amount?
My hours.
Yeah, for real. I love that. And I love that. They're just like, how do I make this paper turn into money?
Oh,
like, give it to your mom, right? And make sure your mom teaches you how to use a deposit slip. I even asked my staff to do that. I was like, hey, make sure you explain to these kids how, what is the check?
Yeah.
What do you do with it?
Make sure you cross your hours.
Yeah. You have
what
to.
is it? No, what is it? Time sheet.
Yeah. Make sure you that's a fun one. Piece to my administrative officer, Nate Cruz, at the Department of Promote Affairs, who has the fun job of managing all these young people's time sheets, and has to make sure that they all sign them and they get them logged. Yeah, make sure. And man, it's hard enough to do the time sheets with a dog. And you think that'd be the easiest thing? This is the thing that's gonna make sure you get your money. You would think that that's automatic, but sometimes you forget. But yeah, I mean, it's great training, great opportunity, and I think that it's smart. We want our young people to go into the workforce, and granted, not every young person is going to go straight into the workforce out of high school, and we hope that our young people are pursuing higher education, that are leveling themselves up. But some students are ready. Some families are ready for their young people to go right into the workforce, and I think it's good for them to have opportunities to prepare for that. And that's something that I think we all can agree on, is that we prefer to keep local talent local, and to keep local talent home. Not lose our local talent because there's no opportunities here, or not lose our local talent because they can't get educated or get trained. And I think it's always tough, when we're sourcing all of our talent from off island. So I think these are all great things. I think we should support these types of things, and I'm happy that we're able to be a part of it. Man, I'm on fire today. I got another call already. All right, let's go back to the phone lines. On line one, we got Joe. How today, Joe? You're on the air.
Day, Melvin. I've called you before. So my question right now is, where are we at with the status quo?
Is there more to it? What do you mean, where are we at with the status quo?
Okay, so, I've listened to your show, and since I retired from the military years ago, this has always been a subject, of concern. My question is, is there any movement forward as to, going before the people to vote on it? I mean, it seems like we're just still in the same spot we were years ago.
So, is your question specific to a vote? Is that what you mean?
Just to a vote. Yeah, let's say that, to a vote for the people to decide, and then we move forward with it.
Just specifically for where is the status in regard to a plebiscite?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that right now we are in a place where our local policy conflicts with the federal policy. And so, our local legislation was challenged in court and lost at the Ninth Circuit Court, was denied an appeal or writ of certiorari in the Supreme Court. And so that means that the Ninth Circuit Court ruling stands. And the Ninth Circuit Court ruling is that we cannot have a plebiscite, non-binding or not. We cannot have a plebiscite that limits eligibility if it's led by the government. And so at this stage, I think that there's a number of ways that it can happen. One is that Congress can authorize the vote to happen the way that it was adopted in local statute. The local legislature could change the statute to adhere to the confines of the Ninth Circuit Court ruling, right? Which basically means that they would just change the law to allow any registered voter on Guam to vote. Another option is that the case could elevate to the International Court of Justice, which is, I think, complex. And then the last one, which to be honest, I don't know a whole lot about the legality behind it, but it's been proposed that it could be conducted by a non-governmental organization instead of the government again. So I think one of those four things, any of those four things, could get us to a point where there's actually a vote. But I think the other thing to keep in mind is that let's just say, for the sake of argument, right, that there was never any court case. The local legislation was and always has been a non-binding referendum. And so really the act of self-determination, the act of Samoa self-determination in Guam is really more like an act of dignity, right? We wanted to have an opportunity for the people to be treated with respect. We ask what it is that they think, and then we go from there. But it's not something that would bind Congress or would bind any other nation, or not necessarily even bind the government of Guam. Like, the government of Guam really could just, in theory, could take the outcome of a referendum and go the complete opposite. Because the referendum didn't attach a mandate. It did attach a mandate, but the only mandate was that the government of Guam would transmit the results of the referendum to the White House, Congress, and the United Nations. And so from that point, I think that the key is for us is that the reason, despite it being non-binding, I personally still think it is important because it's the mechanism that can kind of kickstart the conversation with the United States federal government, but also the international community, right? Because it kind of triggers their mandate, the UN's mandate. So, and yes, to be fair, there's been a lot of argument about, what's the point of having the UN involved in this when the U.S. doesn't have to do anything that the UN says, which is true. But nonetheless, because it's a part of the UN's mandate to monitor the situation of any existing colonial rule, which includes us, 17 others, or 16 others. And the U.S., of course, signed and agreed to that charter, that mandate, the United Nations Charter. So, what it does is it sets the tone and initiates engagement. Like the way that the United States deals with their territorial status now is they just kind of say, well, their official argument is that Guam is self-governing and that Guam should be removed from the list of non-self-governing territories left in the world. And of course,
the reason why I bring this, I'm sorry, but the reason why I bring this question up is you obviously know that now there's a bill out there about birthright citizenship.
Right.
So, I mean, if this bill was to become law and birthright citizenship and territories were taken away, then why even bother being under the United States government?
I mean, I think that's a fair question. And that's what I think, that's the conversation that I think this bill has sparked in our community. And I think it's rightfully so. I think that, a lot of people, when they think about the territorial relationship, right, the territorial status, because there is citizenship attached to it, there are a lot of people who, it's kind of enough, right? Well, yeah, I know that being a territory is not the same as being a state, and yeah, I know that there are some kind of, inferior aspects of our status over any other status, statehood, independence, free association, whatever. As long as I have a citizenship, that's enough. But I think that the thing that a lot of people miss in that conversation is the nature in which you have citizenship. If you're a citizen of Guam, then you're a statutory citizen, which is a different thing than being a birthright citizen, right? Being a birthright citizen means that the genesis of your citizenship is rooted in where you were born, right? And being born in the United States. So because citizens in the territory are granted citizenship through statute, it means that you have inarguably an inferior form version of citizenship. And even though this bill doesn't threaten to, or it's not directly threatening to repeal citizenship of existing citizens in the territories, I think that the thing that we should be concerned about, and to your point, is that the implications of what this bill is attempting to do, I think it says a lot about what is actually possible. And if revoking birthright citizenship, the interesting thing about this bill is that this is, no matter what anybody says, the bill is pretty plain that this is specifically targeting territories. And the reason why it's happening is because Trump versus Barber failed.
Correct.
And, not failed, but the president's attempt to do this through executive order for the entire United States failed, right? President Trump's executive order was to revoke birthright citizenship from people who were considered illegals in the country, right? They weren't in the country legitimately. They have a baby, and that baby is automatically granted U.S. citizenship. Trump's EO was trying to say, we're not going to allow that. If you're not here in the country legitimately, then your kid doesn't automatically become a birthright citizen. And that was deemed by the Supreme Court as being unconstitutional. And so, subsequently, Congressman Griffith, I think? Yeah, Griffith, from Virginia, introduced this bill. What is it? I have it here. 1 second. H.R. 9724. And so this bill is titled, A Bill to Clarify United States Birthright Citizenship Laws in the Territories and Combat Foreign Nationals who are seeking citizenship in the U.S. territories. And so it's specific to Guam, American Samoa, Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and the Northern Mariana Islands. Even though they're a Commonwealth, they're still classified as a territory. And so I think the thing that we should be particularly concerned with and notice immediately is that this almost feels like like you're lost and you're like, fine, then I'm going to take my ball and I'm going to go home. It feels like that. It feels like, it's very like, it's sour sports. Like they couldn't pull it off in the Supreme Court with Trump's EO. And so what they did is they turned around and immediately went after the territories. And this is particularly concerning to me because this is all fair game. This is all completely legitimate because of something called the territorial clause. Right? The territorial clause gives Congress plenary power. Right? It allows them to kind of do with the territories what they will, which is just another argument for why it is not right for Guam or any of our territories to remain in this status, right? It's clear that we don't have the same kind of rights and protections as other citizens. And granted, this can be a little nuanced in the case of American Samoa who are considered U.S. nationals and not U.S. citizens. But, for the other four of us, there shouldn't be a reason why your citizenship gives you less guarantees under the Constitution than if you were to move to California. And so I think we've got a really good point.
That's something I wanted to bring up, and thank you for clarifying everything and what your take is on it, because, if this was to happen, let's just say it's a big if,
right?
All right, then look to the armed forces of the United States of America.
That's also a very, very fair point, because territories run the table with that.
That's correct.
Yeah.
We put out more men and women into the armed forces than any U.S. state based on population of size.
Right.
So, like I agree with, the legislature and the government, the executive branches, bring this damn senator out here.
Yeah.
And see how many veterans we have, and then how many active duty component personnel we have. Because if you take away that citizenship, hey, no problem. We just walk away from the U.S. government.
Right.
Forget about all the rules you have. If you don't want us to be U.S. citizens, those that are born here and raised here, then, get us out of being a part of your government. And then we can go independently.
Right.
I appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Joe, for your call, and thanks for your point of view. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think Joe makes a lot of really great points. And just to his last point about active duty service, I think it is fair especially for somebody like Joe who's a veteran, I think it's fair to be upset and kind of feel slighted and offended by what this bill implies. And what it is particularly, what are the implications for military service members? Because for a lot of people who became U.S. citizens and subsequently have this long history of military service right in their community, I think that it's problematic when the principles in which a service member does their duty, right? The principles, the values that they're defending, protecting, when those are not equally delivered, and those protections are not across the board for all citizens, all who serve, it becomes very problematic. I mean, that's how you win a war, right? That's how you win a war, is that you win the hearts and the minds of the people. And it's most especially the people that are fighting that war. And so, where I think that's a fair criticism and question to ask is, where would America's military be if they no longer won the hearts and the minds of the people who serve? And I think Joe's correct. Their impact on the U.S. Armed Forces with this issue, if it escalates to that level, it is staggering. But again, I think for me, the biggest issue is just the fragile nature of our citizenship. And and I think it's ironic, because that's one of the things that I think a lot of people, that has made a lot of people complacent when you think about citizenship. Is that a lot of people think about the territory status and just think, well, organic act means I guarantee you got a citizenship. My passport is blue, and I'm not willing to put that at risk in order to go after decolonization, which I think is, it's a fallacy to begin with, right? Your citizenship is not in jeopardy, even if you change your status. And even particularly U.S. citizenship, you could argue it could be negotiated. It's absolutely possible. And though, the critics will say it's not likely that the only time citizenship becomes an issue is if we were to choose independence. If we were to choose independence, then of course, we become our own nation, and citizenship, you become a citizen of Guam, the country of Guam. But even that, in theory, could be, a dual citizenship could be negotiated with the United States, and it's not unprecedented. It has happened before. And the critics will say it's unlikely, which, I might agree with that. I think it would be unlikely too. But it's not impossible. You know what I mean? I think the point I'm trying to make is that we shouldn't shy away from the decolonization conversation and the prospect of changing our status to a fully self-governing one because we're afraid of what it means to our citizenship. And even in the scenario, okay, let's just explore the possibility. Even in the scenario that we were to become a fully independent nation, and we decided, as a community, we're not gonna. We'd rather just not have a relationship, at least not that kind of relationship with the United States, where we're going to negotiate dual citizenship. And we're just going to be our own citizens. A lot of people, I think a lot of people have this unnecessary fear of what that could mean. One of the big things with citizenship is your passport and your travel, which I think is, it's proven globally that it's possible, that you could still have a passport and still have access to travel destinations, in a very wide range. I mean, Palauans have their own passport, and the Palauan passport goes to a lot of places, like a lot of places. And believe it or not, there are passports from other countries that travel to more destinations than the U.S. passport. U.S. passport is definitely formidable, and it's definitely up there in the top 10. But I mean, it's not like the gold standard necessarily. And so, I think that's the thing, is that no matter, if we were freely associated with the United States, then I guarantee you that citizenship is going to be a part of that negotiation. And what does it take, for the government of Guam, the people of Guam, to retain U.S. citizenship as a freely associated nation? And of course, if the people of Guam choose statehood, we choose integration, then we would move into a state status, in which case the protection of our citizenship would no longer be statutory. It would no longer be based on a policy. It would be an outright birthright citizenship recognition, just like any other state. And so, the point I'm trying to make here, and I'm not, you decide for yourself which status you think is best. But I think no matter what, we should all be agreed that staying in the territory status is the worst place to be. This is the absolute worst place to be. This is not at all where we want to be. And it's just we're too vulnerable as a territory. The rules, the goalpost moves all the time when you're a territory. And I think that's what we're seeing here, right? States, nobody flinched in the continental U.S. When President Trump launched his EO to try to revoke birthright citizenship, nobody in the States was like, oh my God, this is terrible. They just kind of scoffed and were like, that's cute, President Trump. And EO, give me a break. Give me a break. Let's go to the Supreme Court. We're a state where, we have the full protection of the Constitution, and this is clearly unconstitutional. And you're never going to get away with this. But everybody in the territories held their breath. And we're still holding our breath. Even after it was shot down, Trump's ego was shot down in the Supreme Court. We're still over here like, because now here's this bill. They're specifically targeting territories, and we have to be realistic that because Congress has plenary power, this is absolutely possible. Absolutely. Anyhow, I got a call on line one, but we're at the top of the hour, so I'm going to have to ask Frank, you're on line one, please hang in there, or you can call us back after the commercial break. But we got to take a real quick one. It is 11 o'clock a.m., and you are tuned in to Challenge the Status Quo on Wave 105.1 FM. We'll be right back.
Friday, July 24th, up and top. Iran's war remains a hot one, with the number of combatants expanding. Yet President Trump describes talks with Iran as the most serious yet. Jennifer King reports.
The U.S. and Iran show no signs of decelerating their conflict. U.S. Central Command says their latest barrage was designed to further degrade Iran's ability to threaten mariners, and that U.S. forces disabled a merchant vessel trying to run the blockade. Iran sent a wave of attacks aimed at U.S. strongholds in the Gulf.
We want to be the tough guys.
President Trump described negotiations.
But they do want to make a deal. There's two ways. I mean, it's, you can just keep doing exactly what we're doing and take them apart piece by piece. We could do it in a more rapid fashion, which we might do, or we can negotiate with them, which we're also doing right now.
Meanwhile, a coalition led by Saudi Arabia struck the port city of Hodeidah in Yemen in response to Houthi rebel attacks on Red Sea shipping. I'm Jennifer King.
President Trump rolled out a fresh round of tariffs and says the U.S. will investigate European Union trade practices, claiming the EU's unfairly fined U.S. tech giants. The CDC says it's logged more than 2,300 cases of measles so far this year, already more than last year's record amount. And as Donahue reports, 4 more states are being linked to a nasty outbreak.
The CDC now says the outbreak of cyclospora, a diarrhea-causing parasite, now includes Illinois, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Pennsylvania. The FDA says the lettuce was traced to Taylor Farms. It was recalling iceberg lettuce grown in central Mexico. President Trump was asked about the outbreak.
We're going to put a major tariff on Texas because of the lettuce.
The government says the number of cases linked to the lettuce is now around 2,000. At least 98 people had to go to the hospital. No one has died. Cases were also reported in Indiana, Kentucky, Michigan, Ohio, and West Virginia. Ed Donahue, Washington.
This is AP News. Laverne, Minnesota's obsession with nutcrackers grows.
With a brand new, over 65-foot nutcracker decked out like a giant Uncle Sam, named Burn the Patriot. It all began with 96-year-old Betty Mann, who did not stop at buying just one nutcracker over the years. Designer Katie Walbrave.
People were taking bus tours to her house to visit her nutcracker collection.
At the time, Betty was on the town's Historical Society board.
So in 2016, I went to my board and I said, I have this crazy collection. I would donate it and maybe it'll draw people into our museum.
The collection has ballooned to over 7,500 nutcrackers. How do you one-up that? You build what's possibly the world's largest nutcracker. Burn the Patriot is almost twice the height of the current Guinness World Record-holding nutcracker in Germany. I'm Richard Dwyer.
The latest through the weekend at APnews.com. I'm Ben Thomas. Thanks for listening.
Continuing FM, powered by Grace's Media.
We're standing inside the historic kitchen today to uncover the dangerous, heavy metal engineering behind an elegant dessert favorite. Welcome to the National Day Spotlight for July 27th.
Before the invention of the convenient modern culinary blowtorch, old world pastry chefs faced a dangerous mechanical crisis trying to achieve the perfect rocky top for natural creme brulee days without curdling the delicate egg custard underneath. Their primitive solution relied on a heavy, antique cast iron weapon called a collimator. Chefs placed this massive iron disc directly into roaring furnace coals until the metal glowed red hot. Then they carefully pulled the blazing clay out and hovered it just millimeters above the sugar, instantly flash-melting the grains into a crisp, dwindled pain through sheer radiant heat alone. turning a high-end French luxury dessert into a grueling daily task of blacksmithing grit.
We live in a really great time. We have coal torches instead of coal furnaces and big metal discs.
I'm just thinking about that, when we went out to eat, that the chef had a blacksmith in the back. Forged in iron.
We're also celebrating the fantastic and National Lovers Calendar. I'm Allison Anderson.
And I'm Marlo Anderson, International Day Calendar, reminding you to celebrate every day.
If you're looking for world-class website hosting at a fair price, Pair Networks is your best choice. Founded in the early days of the web and still going strong today, Pair Networks now hosts over 150,000 websites for its demanding customers worldwide. Setting the standards for excellence, Pair Networks has a technical and support staff that's second to none. A highly stable company with top-of-the-line technology, Pair Networks offers total reliability and flexibility for your website, and even a money-back guarantee. Whether you're a professional web designer or a beginner just getting your site online, Pair Networks has a web hosting plan that's right for you. Make the move today. Log on and learn more at pair.com. That's PAIR.com. Pair Networks. World-class web hosting at a fair price. Visit us at pair.com. Pair Networks.
Time to celebrate Guam's liberation with the Triple Thing 4 Liberation Celebration. We're clearing out inventory with prices below dealer codes and thousands off retail on your favorite Ford vehicle. Drive home and reform F-150 starting at just $31.99 plus. Get a roll wheel of a Ford Mustang starting at $86.95. Or save and pay on the Explorer, Travis Ford, Music, and Mavericks. Don't worry, all stock must go. With the Triple Thing 4 on 2 months free and get 3 free estimates. Shop online at TripleThinkWines.com. People, customers host.
The road to Adams is in full swing. We recently spoke with Democratic candidates Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio and Senator Tina Munoz Barnes to learn more about their vision for Guam. Watch the full conversation that took place on May 26th on the Wave 105 CT channel. This is a glimpse of Guam radio station.
Rise and shine with Roots Breakfast Buffet. Served daily from 6:30 to 9:30 a.m. at Guam Resort. Please enjoy 15% off one week at a time. Save your spot now. Call 609-649-7760 to reserve.
Military officer, law enforcer, policymaker. Service has been the cornerstone of Congressman James Moylan's life. James Moylan swore to protect America as an officer of the United States Army. As a parole officer, James worked with families affected by substance abuse and domestic violence. He was elected to the 35th and 36th Guam legislatures, and now James Moylan represents Guam's needs in our nation's capital as a member of the United States Congress. Congressman Moylan has fought for more than $3 billion for Guam, including almost $1 billion for military construction and roads, and law enforcement and first responder vehicles and equipment. Moylan is also working vigorously on standing up a regional office right here on Guam, Game Changer, for our 25,000 plus veterans, 40 years, 4 homes. Dedicated, resilient, trustworthy, and proven. That's James Moylan. Re-elect James Moylan for Congress. Moylan works.
I'm James Moylan, a candidate for Congress, and I approve this message.
Paid for by James Moylan for Congress. David L. Camacho, Treasurer.
Road to Adams. This time we spoke with Democrat candidates. Senator Clarice Malaki, Senator Sabina Perez. Here is your opportunity to hear how they plan to govern Guam. Watch the conversation about Wave 105 institution. Data May 28th. This is a glimpse of the Guam radio station.
Our critically injured veterans and first responders are left behind every day because of inadequate wheelchairs. That's why Wheelchairs for Warriors is on a mission to serve America's heroes across the nation and provide them with custom-fit wheelchairs tailored to fit their needs to ensure they're rejoining their lives at the highest level of independent mobility and function possible. From lightweight daily use chairs or adaptive sports chairs to all-terrain wheelchairs to get these warriors outdoors. Wheelchairs for Warriors serve those who served us. To join their mission, visit their website at wheelchairsforwarriors.com. Powered by One Preserve.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the show hosts, guests, and callers, and do not necessarily reflect the views of the staff or management of Wave 105.1 FM, Glimpses Media, or our partners. We strive to provide quality, respectful, and engaging content, and we welcome you to participate in the conversation. Thank you for tuning in to Wave 105.1 FM. Enjoy the show.
KBUMFM, Wave 105.1. It's 11:09 a.m. on this Monday, July 27, 2026. For your regularly scheduled program, we have Charles Quo with the Director on the Commission of Decolonization, Mr. Melvin WonPat Borja. Tune in every Monday between 10 to 12 to Charles Quo, where we provide information and the discussion on the ongoing movement to decide Guam's political status. Our wave studio line is 671-922-1051-1052. Call us in studio so you can join in the conversation. We'd love to have you. We're streaming online at thewave105.com, on YouTube, Wave 105.1 FM Guam, and the Glimpses Radio app. Once again, this is Charles Cole. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll get into the program.
And we're back. Welcome back to Challenge the Status Quo. My name is Melvin, and I'm going to be here for another hour. We have some great calls so far. I'm not sure if Frank is still on the line or not. I don't think so. All right. Well, Frank, if you're still out there, I apologize. We had to cut to commercial break, but if you want to give me a call back, phone lines are open. The number is 922-1051 or 1052. You can WhatsApp text your question or comment to the 1051 number. We're also streaming live on the Wave FM YouTube channel and on the Guam COD Instagram. So shout out to all of our peeps on the COD Instagram. If you're not following the Commission on Decolonization, we are at Guam COD on Instagram, the Commission on Decolonization on Facebook. We got a YouTube channel. I think the only thing we're not doing is like the TikTok. I don't know anything about TikTok. Sorry.
I'm not a TikTok person.
I'm like barely Instagram. My Instagram just, it exists, but like I don't really participate. I'm more of a in-person kind of guy. I struggle with COVID, man. I love finally that we are down with like Zoom meetings. I think Zoom meetings are just smart and efficient, but like. You can't just Zoom your way to victory. You know what I mean? Yeah. You can Zoom your way to like a certain point, and then you at some point you got to just recognize that there's no replacement for face-to-face engagement. You know what? I gotta say that's one of the things that I think has made Guam's decolonization journey really difficult. Is that we're very, our geographic isolation is no joke. And, I always think about, like, like the legend of, like, BJ Bergayo and FBLG, right, when they went village to village with a bed sheet. I love hearing this story. Especially from the old folks that were there. And they're like, yeah, I remember when they came to our village and we all ran out in the street. And everybody tells the story the same way, that they literally went through the village with a bed sheet, like holding a bed sheet, and people would just come and throw their change in whatever money they could, they're willing to contribute. And and you think about like, especially at that time, how difficult it was for a person to travel from Guam to the United States. It was no small task. Fascinating story when we did when we were gearing up to do the decolonization exhibit, the Zangan Pihita Plahaji exhibit over at the Guam Museum. Right before we launched, we got a donation from this family in the States who was returning to us an E-Fit cane that was gifted to President Roosevelt by FBLG and BJ Bergayo when they went out to try to get right for the people of Guam, for the Samoa people. And for them to travel, the record says that they also gifted FDR an EFIT cable and like a shell necklace and some other stuff. But that meant that they were traveling by ship and by train, and they were probably traveling with like crates of stuff, you know what I mean, to give. And it's just crazy when you think about like how much it must have took for them to just get from Guam to DC, and how much sacrifice had to be made in order for the two of them to do that. And I always remember this story that Dr. Underwood, former Congressman Dr. Underwood, he likes to tell this story about meeting somebody who was in FDR's administration, and he said when FDR didn't want to talk about something, he would talk about fishing. And then he asked, like, so what did BJ Berdayo and FBLG talk about to FDR? And they said fishing. I was like, oh my God. It's just so rough, it's like heartbreaking, like this crazy story of like our community coming together, right, to like send our two champions to go meet the man. And this is what went down. Oh man, it's rough. We're gonna get back to the phone lines. We got two callers waiting patiently. Hapade, line one. This is Pete Santos. Hapade, Pete, you're on the air.
Hapade, long time no talk, my friend.
I know. I've been typing missing in action.
Anyways, boy, the misconception and misunderstanding of this whole birthright citizenship is crazy, don't you think?
It is pretty crazy, but I gotta tell you that I am also encouraged in that it has really sparked a lot of discussion among a lot of different people, and I think that's kind of to be expected, right? Is that there are a lot of people who I think don't really understand it, but it's loud enough that it gets their attention, and I'm hoping that
right. And the benefit of this now is that it removes a boogeyman. To me,
yes, thank you.
I think they should do it. They should do it. They should get rid of birthright citizenship in the territories, because we are not a state, and because it just proves what we've been saying all along, that our citizenship is not threatened by this. The only way we're going to lose our citizenship is if we renounce it or we commit treason. And so our children will always have U.S. citizenship. And so that boogeyman that they've been using, that boogeyman argument, they're going to take away citizenship from you guys. I mean, look at American Samoa. They have never had U.S. citizenship, right? And so what's the practical effect if they do that here on Guam is that tourists that come, they're the only ones that are not going to have birthright citizenship. Everyone else that is here legally or is a U.S. citizen will have citizenship for their children. That's just a plain fact. And so that boogeyman argument that scares people, we can't be independent because we're not going to have U.S. citizenship. I've been making this argument for a long time. That's not the case. We can have dual citizenship. A lot of people have dual citizenship, but they cannot extinguish our U.S. citizenship by the stroke of a pen. Once you already have it. Get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think they should do it, because then it removes the boogeyman argument that people against independence have always been using against the public.
Yep. I mean, I think that any time that a conversation around changing our political status evokes fear, it means that there's just not enough information out there.
Right. And there's a lot of dual citizens that enjoy both U.S. citizenship and, more is better than less, right?
Yeah, I would imagine so. I mean, I think what's really ironic is that there's been it was such a long journey for the Komodo people to get to 1950 when, the Organic Act was passed, right, and citizenship was extended to our people. And, there's so much kind of like, there's still this like really bad blood between us and like how we remember the Spanish colonial era, right? But I think the irony of it is that at the back end, and no, don't get me wrong, the Spaniards were terrible colonizers. They were not, they were not like this benevolent colonizer. But you can't argue that at the end of the Spanish colonial period, that the way that they extended government and nationality to the Samoa people was leaps and bounds better than where the Americans started at. The Americans started in a very much like, no, this is just our thing that we own, and all of you live here, so we own you guys too, and you're not citizens, and insular cases.
Yeah, and you have no right. You have no right in your own land to sue a U.S. citizen in the courts of Guam.
But
that was the reason why we wanted equal footing. It wasn't so much that we were in love with this idea of being American.
Right. We just thought that having citizenship meant that we had rights.
Right.
Which is, to be fair, backfired big time. I don't think that anybody thought. I think most people thought that citizenship meant that they would have land rights. And that the land
it led to land condemnation, and also land reform led to a lot of unsophisticated people who, and I don't mean that in a derogatory term, it's just that they had lived for millennia in a certain system, and then you have U.S. land reform that now everyone has to go get their land surveyed and pay taxes, and very little people did that, and so guess who ended up with all the land? All the monaculo, right? All the aristocracy ended up with all the land. Why do you think there are some families that have such huge land holdings and a lot of other people just don't have any land? It's because of that land reform that caused everyone to lose their property. And the rich people ended up taking whatever was left that the federal government didn't take. And the passport argument that McNinch always puts forward, it surprises me that he's a professor at the University of Guam, and he can just be so wrong on everything. Everything. I'll put that out there. He can be so wrong on everything. But anyways, that boogeyman argument that McNinch likes to put forward of, you're going to lose your U.S. passport, that's bull hockey. Whatever, I don't know where that word comes from, but that's what that is. That's just a boogeyman argument that he puts forward.
It really is a fallacy, and I think that decolonization is so much more complex than this, And I think that's one of the things.
But I think this is a good impetus for a discussion and for people to think deeper about this, because it's not. All the politicians and even the attorney general got on the bandwagon and said, this is racist, horrible, terrible, whatever. It really isn't. It really isn't. We're different. We're in a territory. We have different rules that apply to us, and this just highlights that.
Right.
And that's a good thing for discussion.
I agree. I definitely think that people need to start thinking about this a lot more.
Right, and we're not at risk at losing our citizenship. We're not at risk at our children not being citizens. That's a boogeyman argument that Runny Mouth McNinch likes to put forward, but it's not. It's a total fallacy.
I agree. Thanks for your call, Pete.
All right. Thanks.
I appreciate it. Have a great day.
You too.
All right, we are moving to line 2. We got Kaduku back. Hopefully, you're on the air with us today.
Melvin, I sounded like to listen and hear what Pete Sumter's attorney has to say. He's got potential.
Yeah, I mean, it's always nice to hear from Pete. He brings a lot of great legal perspective, and he's got a really great experience. So it's nice when we get people calling in and sharing different points of view. But yeah, I think he makes a lot of great points, and the one I really lean on the most is the idea that this is good in the sense that it's a great emphasis. It's a great place for us to start a discussion. I think that a lot of people kind of they look at even though they're dissatisfied with the territory status, they look at citizenship as being the kind of saving grace of this inferior status. And so, and the guarantee, and I think that's one of the things that I think is important is that what happens when what you thought was safe is now no longer safe. What you thought was the reality or the baseline or the framework, that's not really what it is. And I think that's the thing that people should pay attention to in this is that this is directly targeting the territories simply because they can. You know, they're doing this to territories because they can't do it to states. And they can't do it to freely associated nations, and they definitely can't do it to independent nations. And so
it's called stereotypic, man, and because we're still going to be American, and we're still going to have American currency, and it's going anywhere in the world. And I'm into diplomatic immunity, Melvin. I like both sides.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that people need to understand, right, is that dual citizenship is not unprecedented and it is not impossible. And that's just something that we would have to negotiate, you know. But I feel like Guam is not in a place where we're negotiating from a position of weakness. I really believe that Guam would always negotiate from a position of strength because we hold all the cards. You know what I mean? We're the ones who have this unique geographic, location, right? We have this unique strategic advantage. We are pivotal for both military and economics and global trade. And so
we are America's stronghold out in this side of the states, and we're proud, and we stood up, and we fought for the flag ever since. So for the Sultan fan, set us free, man, because we've proven ourselves, and we don't have to prove ourselves anymore. And stop playing that politics with us, because we're over that, man. We got to move on, because we can't. Anything's better than what we're in now, and we just got to do what we need to do, and our people got to go up there and get it like it is, and let's get this thing done. And that's all I ask, Nana, man. We've always been there. We've always stood up. We threw in the kitchen sink and the toilet paper, and they still play this game with us. No more. Enough is enough, man. I pledge allegiance with liberty and justice for all. Give us that justice, because we fought for freedom here. We're fighting for freedom in our own homeland. But hey, anyway, man, I know what you guys say, and let's just keep up the fight. Because if we don't keep this fight up, they're just going to say, hey, forget about Mamakitila. No, I'm sorry. We're not sitting down no more. We're standing up. But hey, anyway, I'm going to keep on listening, man, and keep on coming. And don't forget, we need you, bro.
This is Master Senor. I appreciate you.
Thank
for the call. Have a great day. All right, we are going to our next caller. We have a caller on line 1. This is Chris Flores. How are you, Senor?
Hey, sir, how's the day?
Hey, nice to hear from you.
Yeah, good to hear from you as well. So anyway, I just want to go back.
Did we lose him? I think we lost. Hello? Senor?
In our lifetime.
We gotta go back. Right? We lost you for like 7 seconds. You just cut out.
So, are we good now?
We're good now. I can hear you now.
Okay, so, back to this missile defense system or whatever they're going to install here in Guam, there's only 2 things I know of in life that's guaranteed, and that's death and taxes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Israel has this so-called Iron Dome or whatever they call it, right? The missile defense system that's supposed to knock out all the missiles, incoming missiles that's coming from Iran or wherever they may be coming from. And it's really done a pretty good job, but however, there's been some cases where there are several missiles that penetrated their Iron Dome shield and landed throughout cities there in Israel. So, mind you, they're just shooting ballistic missiles. They're not even shooting nuclear missiles. So, imagine if it's a nuclear missile, all it takes is just one to get through the missile defense system to wipe out Guam, and Guam will be wiped out. There's no doubt about it. If a nuclear missile hits the northern part of the island, don't think that the southern people or the central people are safe. They're not.
Absolutely.
It's gone. The other fact that I'm aware of as I went through my military studies is, you know why the island of Tinian was chosen to be where the lot set for the nuclear bomb for Japan? Okay, so the population was way less, and it mostly and everything. So Guam was just too much, too big, too many eyes and ears. So, and this was a top secret mission. And if any misstep was to happen along the way, well, it's just a little island, and the loss would not be that great versus if it was Guam. And plus, the U.S. had already had Guam as a launching base for future wars or in the Indo-Pacific area. So with that said, it doesn't take really any one missile getting through. So this missile defense system, I mean, no matter what they put, it's not going to protect us 100%. No way. So we're back to square one with really what we really need to do as an island. We always talk about peace through strength. That's also in America, and I believe in that. Reagan proved it. I was in Germany stationed at the time when we were hauling out the Pershing missiles out of Germany because Russia said, hey, you get those out and we get the ones out of Alaska, or that's towards Alaska and towards Alaska. So that was the deal. But I remember those days in Germany when we had to escort these huge payloaders to get the Pershing missiles out of Germany. And the irony of that was it was really kind of funny when you have a bunch of Germans protesting, blocking us not to leave the base because they wanted us to stay. They wanted the missiles to stay because they felt that Russia, if those missiles were out, that Russia would conduct another invasion. And then there's the other Germans that were protesting that, get these missiles out here, they put a target on us and blah, 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 and, So it's a two-edged sword, but my take is it doesn't matter what the military promises Guam, that we'll have an ironclad missile defense. It's not. Let's not fool ourselves. And, the other thing that I just like to mention shortly that you have Peter on the line also is that Peter's absolutely correct. You're a U.S. citizen now on Guam, and your kids, your future grandkids and great-grandkids, they're going to remain U.S. citizens no matter what that bill represents in Congress. But I think what happened was, if you remember back in the day, I remember clearly when, tourists would come to Guam, their 8-month, 9-month pregnancy, they give birth here in Guam, and they're U.S. citizens. They have a kid now that's a U.S. citizen. I think that was the intent, was to stop non-U.S. citizens having their kids born on the island, and then now they become U.S. citizens. And a part of that thing, too, was, I met a lot of Vietnamese folks in Washington State when I used to live out there that, you're from Guam? I said, yes, sir. And goes, my son was born in Guam and he was there in 1975 during the, when they were being sent here to be screened to move on to the States. And they talked about how much they loved Guam and everything. And I said, well, that's great. And of course, they became naturalized citizens in the process. But I'd like for that law to go through that, if you're a non-U.S. citizen, and this only affects non-U.S. citizens. It doesn't affect us. That if you're born in Guam, you shouldn't have the right to be a U.S. citizen just because you're born on U.S. soil. If you're Korean, Vietnamese, Filipino, whatever, and you're not a U.S. citizen, you travel to Guam on your 9th month or 8th month pregnancy, and then you give birth here in Guam, your kid should not be a U.S. citizen. should be whatever the social of your country is that you traveled on to come to Guam. And with that, I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Senor Flores, for your call. It's nice to hear from you.
Okay,
Have a great one. Yeah, I think, again, I'm going to go back to what Pete ended with, and that, this is a really fantastic impetus for a discussion. And I think that to me, this is the beauty of this. Yes, it's troubling. Yes, it kind of rubs me the wrong way when I first, heard about this bill. But it's really, for me, it's more the principle, right? It's more the principle of the situation. It annoys me because it makes it very clear that it's just another reminder that our territory status is inferior and that we're not equal. And a country that's built on equality and liberty and justice for all, it's just hypocritical. And it bothers me. I'm a stickler for fairness, man.
I was waiting for them when that bond was going to drop here. Sure. Although I know that's coming because you haven't been in and all.
I know, man.
I was waiting for this bond to drop.
It's so funny because my friend was like, hey, so are we going to do any show prep? You want to come in first, man? And I'm over here like, I don't need anything. I'm on fire right now.
I knew. I was like,
so please, just give me the prep anyway. Give me a copy of the bill. Give me all the highlights from the local media discussion, and thanks to Byron Uggan, my staff over at the Commission on Decolonization, always looks it up.
And wasn't it crazy because it was literally before liberation?
Yeah,
I was like, what the?
Which I gotta say, like some of the discussion around that time when it was lined up with liberation, some of that discussion I thought was a little problematic, but. Whatever the case, those are all fair points, right? It's part of our history, right? We have clearly made sacrifices that have benefited the United States global standing. We have done things, sacrificed things, experienced things that has helped to elevate the United States into this global superpower that it is now, and that's undeniable. Where would Guam be, or where would the United States be without Guam and the Marianas, during World War II? And what would the outcome of World War II have been? And so, and clearly, the United States has benefited tremendously in the outcome of World War II. A lot of superpowers have. But, it's just, normally when there's conflict, right, there's a war, there's a country that kind of comes out with an advantage and a country that doesn't. But I would say that, there's even situations where, countries have kind of made this rebound. Like, look at Japan at the end of World War II. I don't think anybody would have predicted that Japan would be this global powerhouse in the 2020s. But here they are. They become this beacon of, like, technology, advancement, and, savvy economics and, growth and all of that good stuff, right? But territories lose no matter what. Even when we're owned by the winner, we don't win. We just lose. That's all we do. All territories do is lose because all territories get is being used. You know what I mean? And that's what I do.
You're gonna be thankful for.
Yeah, and that's the insult to injury. It's like, and on top of it, you better be grateful. You better be grateful. Don't forget to say thank you for the crumbs I gave you. Right. And it's. I think that it's insulting. Yeah. But I think that's just what time it is, and I think that people need to accept it. Like, yes, this is ugly, and yes, this is uncomfortable, and yes, it's even offensive. But why are you so surprised? Why are you so shocked that this is how you're treated? This is how you're looked at. Yeah. I think that we should acknowledge that we do have an inferior status. That's one of my favorite things that I heard from Governor Atta. There's this congressional hearing where he came out, and right in the beginning, right when he introduced himself, he says something like, "Hapade, my name is Joseph F. Atta, and I am the governor of the occupied colony of Guam." And he goes on to say, like, let us, at least for today, let us not subscribe to, to this, like, he basically is saying that the territory title is just a nice way of saying colony. And let's, at least for today, let's just acknowledge it for what it is. Let's just call it what it is. It's a colony, let's call it a colony. You know what I mean? And I thought that was so bold at that time, especially before Congress. A lot of leaders go to Congress and just kind of like, oh, well, we really love you guys. We got a few, got a few notes. But we're not saying that we're mad here. We still want to be friends. And they do it in a really nice diplomatic way. And then here's Governor Alvarez, just like, we're a colony and you are colonizers. And if that makes you feel uncomfortable, then face the facts. It's just like, wow, that was bold. And I love that. I think that's important, right? I think that guys, it's nothing. You didn't do this. You didn't create this. It's not your fault. It's not your fault that you are colonized. We're the victim here, man. Like, we don't have to apologize for it. You don't have to feel bad because you're upset. You don't have to feel bad because you're offended that you're not treated with the same dignity as other people. And I think that's the thing, right? That's the thing that we should be focused on in this bill. This bill is only possible because you live in a territory. Guam is only a part of this because we are a territory, because they control us unilaterally. And anybody who argues that we're not unilaterally controlled by the federal government, the writing is on the wall. Go look at policy, federal policy, since the beginning, since 1898, and tell me that we're equal to states. This is not even a conversation. The fact that this went up to the Supreme Court in Trump versus Barbara, like, I'm shocked that it went that far. I'm shocked that the Supreme Court had to come down. And I believe that's just the nature of President Trump. President Trump is like, I'm gonna go as far as I can go, and President Trump is like it's like a 6-year-old. You know what I mean?
And that's like, I think that's like the first that sitting president was there. Like, he really, he showed up.
Showed up at the Supreme Court. Yeah, kind of like really intimidate the justices.
Yeah.
Remember all of you that are appointed. I'm watching you.
Yeah.
Like, oh God, get out of here, bro. I'm telling you, dude, he's like a 6-year-old. He's like, I'm just going to try to get away with everything I can get away with until mom or dad says no. And, like, holds it down. Like, absolutely not. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's what happened, is that the Supreme Court finally stepped in and was like, absolutely not. No. This is not, you're way out of bounds on this. And, I mean, this is a conservative Supreme Court. It's a very conservative Supreme Court. And the fact that, they didn't just fold on Trump. They're like, nah, sorry, man. I can't side against the Constitution. Yeah. That's what it's supposed to be, right? The Constitution is the Constitution is king. In the American system, that's the deal, right? Like, the president, the Congress, the courts, nobody is the king, right? Yeah. Nobody is. It's not an authoritarian government. The one thing that has supremacy is the Constitution, right? So even in, like, the recognition of state sovereignty, yes, states are sovereign within their borders, but they still have to adhere to the confines of the U.S. Constitution. States also have their own state constitution, local constitution. But that constitution has to recognize the supremacy of the U.S. Constitution. Nonetheless, allowing for state sovereignty. And that, to me, is the big difference between Guam and California and Texas and wherever, right, in the U.S. system, is that we're not extended that same full measure of self-government even at a state level, right, within our borders. And territories are never going to have that because of things like the insular cases and the plenary power of Congress through the territorial clause. This is just what it is. The system is built to take advantage of and treat the island like an asset, like it's something that can be owned. And by default, guess what? All of us people who just so happen to live here, we can also be owned. Yeah. Unless you're willing to give up your homeland and then go live in, like, Las Vegas or Arizona, and then you can be a citizen that has the full protection of the U.S. Constitution. But if you want to be a resident if you want to live in Guam or Puerto Rico, or the U.S. Virgin Islands or the CNMI, then you just have to deal with the feds and the way that they are able to kind of just throw their weight around. This is a bully tactic to me. It is. It's totally a bully tactic. Trump came through, his EO got shot to hell, and then Congress was like, well, fine then. It's fine. Yeah. We're going to do it to the territories, and you can't tell us no. Straight up, that's what this is. Like, you can't say no. Look, it says right here that we have plenary power. You know what I mean? And guess what? Our delegate, this is weird. This is weird for me because I got to give Jim Moylan props. I got to give Jim Moylan props in some of the things that he said. I think he said some things that are important. You know? Like he said that this is a dangerous precedent. He said, quote, the congressman, not he said, but he was in the PN coverage. They were quoted as saying, the congressman believes this legislation sets a dangerous precedent by suggesting that the citizenship of Americans born in the territories can be revisited whenever broader national policy debates arise. And this is coming from Moylan's office. He says, quote, or his office says, quote, the people of Guam have answered our nation's call without hesitation at some of the highest enlistment rates per capita and stood with America through times of war, hardship, and national need. They have never been asked for special treatment, only to be treated equally under the law. I think these are all fair points. And to be fair to Congressman Moylan, Delegate Moylan, we have to acknowledge that it's important that he stands in opposition to this bill. But I gotta tell you, there's some other things that I think are problematic. And I think that a lot of it is that, why is decolonization and political status resolution not just like the baseline here? Like that's my grasp. Yes, I agree with all of these things. I agree that he said that this is the wrong approach by singling out America's territories and placing the long-standing statutory citizenship of future generations born in Guam and the other U.S. territories at the center of that debate. That's a quote from his office. You know what I mean? I'm over here like, okay, that's not wrong, but why are we not upset about statutory citizenship? You know what I mean? To me, that's the heart of the issue. That's where it's at. If we're not going to talk about that, then what the hell are we talking about? You know what I mean? Like, to me, that's the thing that everybody should be hung up on. For sure. Is your citizenship is inferior. It's not the same kind of U.S. citizenship. And it cannot be until you decide that you're going to go live in the United States, in the continental United States. Then you can have the citizenship and all the protections and everything that comes with it in the same way that other Americans have. But if you live in Guam, you're a statutory citizen, even though the kind of the exception, right, or the exemption was given, or how do I say, the consideration was given, so that when people are born here, they then automatically become citizens. Different than, say, someone who was 20 years old in 1950, and then they were made citizens directly by the Organic Act. The nature of our citizenship, how we got to this place, is still rooted in a statute, which is different than the state. And the only way that can change is if Guam was to be integrated into the United States, was to become a member of the Union, or absorbed by another state. And then then our citizenship essentially is like bulletproof, right? Because then it's a birthright, which is different. And I think that's the thing that we should be focused on. Is yes, we are U.S. citizens, and yes, your passport is blue, and yes, on the surface it looks like you have all the inalienable rights of the U.S. Constitution, but the reality is that you're still under the plenary power of Congress as a territory, and you still have to adhere to what the Congress dictates. And your delegate, the best he's going to do is say, hey guys, I don't agree with that. but he's not actually going to vote on the floor. And I think that's fundamentally flawed. You know what I mean? If we're gonna have a debate, Congress is going to have a debate about the future of our island and the status of our citizenship, from here on out. And we're not included? And our voice doesn't count because we don't get to vote on this? I think that's wrong. And I think you should think that that's wrong too. And I'm not, I don't disagree. I agree with a lot of what Scott Flores and Pete Sanchez were saying about, this bill is not going to take your citizenship away. I absolutely agree that it's not. But that's not the point. The point is that your citizenship is nonetheless rooted in statute, which makes it by default different than any other birthright citizen in the United States. And statutory citizenship is inferior. And that's just the reality of it. You know what I mean? If we're going to continue to... It's hypocritical to be citizens and then turn around and say that Congress has plenary power and you don't have a voice and a vote in Congress. That's just wrong. That's counterintuitive to American democracy. And that's my whole thing. Like, look, man, either you're going to let us in the game and let us play the game on equal footing like everybody else, or you're going to let us go. Let us go and let us figure it out. And then, if you want to continue to have a relationship, then we're going to negotiate it like equals, which is precisely what the Marshall Islands and Palau and the FSM have done. It's precisely what Cuba and the Philippines have done. And each has kind of gone their own way. You can argue that, that the three freely associated nations in Micronesia have brokered a much closer arrangement with the United States than the Philippines and Cuba have. And that to each their own, you know what I mean? Which I think is something that's a bridge that we'll have to cross when we decide to negotiate our final political status. Anyway, that's my soapbox toward the end of the hour, but I think I just lost caller in line one. Sorry. I was talking too much. But we got another call on line two. We got Pete Sanchez back on the air. How can Pete?
State local has their own state constitution.
How can Pete? You're on the air.
Hey, so, terms or titles, labels matter a lot. And in my study of American history and as it pertains to the quote-unquote territories, Guam is not a territory. We have been referred to as a territory. It's not a territory in the U.S. historical sense. The way U.S. territories who later on became states, got into the Union. Guam is a possession. That is the exact word that Guam is. We are a possession. We were bought for $2 million after the Spanish-American War. We were not, slated to become a state. That's why they came up with this weird term, unincorporated territory. Right? The only way that the Supreme Court knew how to label us was as a territory because there was a territory clause in the Constitution. But we have never been a territory in the exact sense of the word territory under American history. We are a possession. We continue to be a possession. We are also a colony. But when they say territory of Guam, that is really not the factual case.
Right.
So just wanted to point that out because it helps us to think about this. It helps us to differentiate between those territories like Louisiana and Washington and Oregon and Hawaii and things like that. Those were territories that were
direct path to statehood.
Well, they also followed a certain formula, right? They were the natives were displaced by a white settler government, and then they petitioned the United States to become a state. So what they are before they become a state is a territory.
Right.
Guam, CNMI, Virgin Islands, all of us were never a territory in that sense. We were possessions. We are possessions. We still are possessions. They did away with using that word possession because it didn't fit within the rubric of the constitutional framework, but they also did away with it because it seemed demeaning.
Yep.
But in actuality, that is what we still are. We still are a possession of the United States. And like I have told everyone, we can be sold tomorrow. We can also be ordered to evacuate every single person, human, non-military human being on Guam can be told to evacuate tomorrow because we are a possession. The Organic Act was just something to appease the locals. It is a federal statute. It is not a state constitution. It is not of the people and for the people and by the people.
Yeah, ironically, we use it like a state constitution, like even in our...
It's a proxy for now, right? But, yeah, so when we think about our status, we got to remember we are a possession. We are not a territory. That is only flowery language that was used by the Supreme Court because they didn't know how else to refer to us. And that's my 2 cent for I gave my 1 cent earlier, and that's my 2 cent for today.
Now it's 2 cents. Thanks, Pete.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
All right.
Have a great day, SF. You know, these are really great points, and I like it. I like when we say it like this. I like when we say colony. I like when we say possession. I like when we say asset, even though I know that it's offensive. Like, for me, I'm still, even when I hear it casually, I kind of cringe inside. Because it sucks. It sucks to be like, you know, my homeland is a colony. My homeland is a possession, is an asset. You know, it's just something that can be bought and sold. I don't like the idea that I can be bought and sold, you know. And I think that's, but I think it's necessary for us to recognize the reality of the situation. Even though, yes, it's extreme, and yes, it's unlikely, and yeah, there will be like a media nightmare. All hell will break loose if they were to pull a stunt like that. But nonetheless, Pete's right in that it is still possible. Unlikely, but possible. Because legally, that's the framework that we live in. You know, there's a clear legal differentiation between who we are here in the territory, in the colony, in the possession, versus who they are over there in Texas and, you know, New York or wherever. And so, you know, I think it's important. It's important for us to recognize that distinction. You know, I think that a community can deal with injustice when they're just comfortable enough. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I think there are a lot of people who are struggling here in Guam, but, you know, obviously there are places out there in the world where people are struggling way more than what we're experiencing. And so that's kind of how I believe that's what it is. That's what time it is in Guam. It's that we're struggling just enough where, you know, we can kind of keep our heads above water. And as long as we can scrape by, you know, we're just going to keep on.
That's what said that. Remember?
Yeah, absolutely.
Colonized.
We are comfortably colonized.
I remember that's what I remember from the start.
Yeah, and I think that's what, you know, that when a community gets pushed to the point where they're no longer comfortable and where something is being threatened directly, that's when you see thousands of people march in the street. You know? Mm-hmm. Like that, I mean, I believe like that's what happened in Okinawa with the military base, with Katema, right? Is that community had been pushed so far. You know, in the beginning, I'm sure that it was not great, but you know, it was comfortable enough, just enough. There's a lot of things they don't like, but you know, they don't want to threaten the things that they do like. And then eventually it got to the point where it's just like there's so many things that were happening, whether it be, you know, accidents with military vehicles, like they crashed a school into a helicopter, or a helicopter into a school site. Yeah. You know, they had a bunch of training incidents, accidents. They had a lot of violence against women and girls, a lot of issues in the community with, like, you know, the soldiers getting drunk and causing trouble inside, you know, when they're out. And it just got so bad that people just had it. They had enough. And I agree, but I don't think that our community is quite there yet. I don't think that we are so uncomfortable that we're ready to march thousands of people in the streets. But I do think that things like this push us to that point. And I really hope that we're paying attention and that we're trying to learn more and prepare ourselves, because that's really what it's going to be. It's not enough for us to just kind of take action, but we got to be prepared for what happens after. And so I know we got a lot of smart, capable people here on Guam that can help guide that. And I really look forward to it. I think it's a fun, exciting time. Anyhow, we are at the top of the hour. I want to thank my bajillion callers to just I was on fire today. Yeah, man. I don't know. Yuli must have put the juju out there and made everybody get hyped up. But yeah, there were a lot of people who called in. Thank you to everyone who called in. I appreciate you all listening. Thanks to everyone out there on our Instagram Live and on the Wave YouTube channel. And I look forward to hearing from you guys next week, Monday. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Adios.